Hello everybody, how's it going, and welcome back to an exclusive early access Patreon, but also on YouTube, Kill Connor Clubhouse spoilercast episode for God of War. Hello, my name is James, and I'm joined, as always, by Tyler.
As always, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, mate, very good. Definitely haven't been talking to you for the last couple of hours, recording other podcasts and things.
No.
So this is just the start of us talking. Yep. That was a good intro, by the way. You almost half fumbled your words, but you really picked it up and saved yourself.
Really?
I like it.
I thought I said like a bunch of jargon, and it was just there's a lot of shit.
I haven't heard the word jargon since I was in high school. I love it.
Yeah, people don't use that normally. People should use it more. It's good.
Okay. Cool. Well, this podcast is God of War spoilercast, as James said. So that means if you haven't finished God of War, get back on your PlayStation 4 and finish it before you listen to this podcast. And if you think to yourself, I'm not going to play God of War, I just want to listen and hear what their thoughts are on the game, you're wrong. Buy a PlayStation 4, or if you have a PlayStation 4 already, buy God of War and play the fucking game. Don't listen to this. This game is worth your time. This game is worth your money. Fucking do it. Don't listen to this until you finish God of War. No exceptions. Do it. Yeah, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Atreus is Loki. Sorry, James.
Oh, that's the best way of doing it. If anyone was trying to fucking chance it and they were like, oh, let's see how far I can get into it before I find spoilers, they're fucked. Yeah. You were warned. We didn't say we were starting from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. We just said this is a spoiler cast. You better finish fucking God of War. I made that up on the spot. I was thinking to myself, what can I say? I'm like, that's it, I guess. That's the only...
Great.
Oh, God. Oh, fuck, I'm funny, James. I'm so pumped. Did we read the names of the Infinity War spoiler cast? Are we supposed to do that?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay, yeah, I guess we do. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a extra episode of Kill Connor Clubhouse, which is usually exclusive here on patreon.com/ as always, but also it's just early access, 24 hours, so it's free for the public as well. As of Tuesday, the same with the Infinity War podcast last week, so we're doing an extra podcast for the beautiful people. So to thank a few of those sweet vintage lads over at patreon.com/ as always that make these extra podcasts happen, we have King Richard III, Ballsack 47, T-Man or Travis, Billy, the Team Dynamite Captain Robertson, Josh Devlier, Damien, Mario 5380, Lumistrad, Josh Jordan, Ben or Modorox, the Humble Worm, El Staco 91, Emil Catborg, Austin, S. Jaws, G'day, it's Lazer, Prudvy Mover, Shaded Rav, Julie, Adam Sundling, H. Bars 12, Saggy Tits, Jace, the Last Medici, Jonas Stewart, Jameson Ladd, Yazen, Joe the Sexy Boy Smith, Brian Ford, Connor DeRose, Ginger Nut Jared, Big Up Longhead Fox, George Walford, and Fox and Ladd, Joshua Mora, Gene, Marcus Blackburn, Nimbus, Seth, Oscar, Rav, Jai, Son of a Bitch, OG Doggo, Tyler Trento, Brendan or BQ Overlord, and Pink Flame 313. Thank you, Sweet Vintage Lad, for helping me out the podcast. Now let's get into this. God of War. Right. James, you finished it. I finished it.
Mm.
From what we were talking about before this game came out, with all the reviews, we've been hearing the hype. What's your overall thoughts on God of War on PlayStation 4?
Well, I knew...
Where does it sit for you in games of all time?
Oh, it's my favourite game of all time. And
it's Witcher 3, it's better than that.
I beat The Witcher 3. And I know I'm right, because George agreed with me as well, that it's beat The Witcher 3 and dethroned it. It's because there's something about it. It's a more personal experience, and even though it's smaller than The Witcher 3, it's shorter than The Witcher 3. You can play The Witcher 3 and get hundreds of hours out of it, same as you can with something like Skyrim. But what you can't get is the same experience, the same sort of emotions, the same... I don't know, there's something about God of War that... It's the way that they do everything is it's not open world, but it's not completely linear either. It's like this mix of the two, but you get that sort of really, really polished The Last of Us experience or
the best of both worlds
Uncharted
sort of
experience. But the game kind of is open world. It is a big world. There's a lot of places you can explore. You got all those realms you can explore, but it's so fucking polished. There's so much detail with the constant camera shot. There's never a loading screen. I mean, there kind of is, but you don't notice that it's loading. It's like when you're in the realm room. Obviously, would be a loading screen, but it's not the same as like the fast travel thing. But they do it in such a way where it's like not a loading screen. So like it's always this continuous camera shot. You're always playing the game. It's just this fantastic fucking experience. And I think that in the first 10 minutes of playing the game, I hadn't experienced, and I couldn't put on it, oh yeah, this is a 10 out of 10 game, and this is my favorite game, but I got it. Like, if the whole game continued like that, the way the first 10 minutes were, the way it opened up with the soundtrack, and the acting, and the camera movements, and the way the game looked, and everything, just the way it was for those first 10 minutes of the game, setting everything up, I was like, I completely get why this game has the reviews it does. This is definitely a super special game. And I obviously wasn't wrong. It just gets better and better and better and better and better. Just such a fucking great experience. I loved it from start to finish. It was great.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. It's hard to describe as an experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's unique and also at the same time revolutionary and also at the same time familiar. It has the best of all the aspects of gaming that it tries to tackle. It has the best aspects of open world. It has the best aspects of like a linear, enclosed sort of personal storyline. It does the best with what it has with characters. It does the best with pacing, not just pacing in terms of story pacing, which is hugely important in games, but pacing in terms of what gameplay it gives you. It doesn't give you everything on a silver platter in the first 5 minutes of you starting the game. You earn every aspect of gameplay that the game gives you. It keeps the game fresh from start to finish. It makes the game feel rewarding, and it makes you feel like your progression means something. On top of the story being incredible, yet so simple all at the same time. It really is just a once-in-a-generation experience. Is it the greatest game I've ever played? Maybe. It very well might be. In a lot of ways, it is by far the best game I've ever played, for sure. Not every game's the same. So when I compare it to like a Skyrim, Red Dead Redemption, my Kingdom Hearts 1, my other top 3 games of all time, it has things that it does way better than all of those games, right? But maybe Skyrim has this that I think is the best, or Kingdom Hearts has this that I think is the best. Like, they all have elements I think is the best of what they sort of do. But God of War is certainly in the discussion of one of the best games, if not number one, the best game I've ever played. For sure. It is. It just is. Yeah. And it's because of the writing of the story. It's because of the direction it took the gameplay, the combat, the world itself, the reward it sort of gives you, and the fun of it all, whilst never ever being boring at any point. At any point of the game. There's no camera change. There's no loading screen. For the 50 hours I played, it is one camera, one world, go.
Yeah.
And that's something I've never experienced before. And it's a game that I felt I'd never experienced anything like it before, while all at the same time feeling like I've experienced something like this before, but never this good. It's hard to totally put my finger on without playing it. I can't say that to someone unless they've played it. They couldn't understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's exactly what I said when I played it, and I was like, Tyler, you need to play this game. I'm like, I can't explain it, but when you play it, it clicks, and you're like, oh, I get it. I get why this is so good.
I'm so happy you convinced me, like, last Clubhouse. Tyler, just fucking get it. I'm like, yeah, you're right, I'll get it.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Like, that day.
It's just fucking incredible. And, like you said, the story is so simplistic. Like, it's not this super complex, convoluted story, but it's about the characters. Like, it's the character development and the character arcs are done so fucking well. And I'm so invested in the characters and their interactions with each other and everything. It's just incredible. And the story itself's great, and it sets itself up for, to do things, and like, it's just so good. It's just so fucking good.
You're right. You're 100% right. It's hard to fault. I don't know if I have a single fault for this game, and I've heard people criticize little things, like, not that they're criticizing it like it's not a good game, like, it is this good, but I thought this might have been done better, or this might have been done better. I'm like, I get it, but I thought that was fine. Like, some people talk shit about the fast travel. I would have if the first, like, 50 fast travels didn't have dialogue that was unique to that they kept the story going the same way if you're in the boat. there's either you, like Kratos, or Mimir telling a story to Atreus, and there's some dialogue. And in that, you're learning about the lore, and it's building the whole world, and it's building the foundations, not just for this game to mean something, not just for this game to feel like it's bigger and there's a bigger world to what you're experiencing in this story. It means as well, like, shit, there's a lot I want to explore in a sequel. There's a lot I want to explore in a trilogy. There's a lot I want to explore within the Nordic mythology that this game has introduced to us, that this game has built the foundation to, that this game has made interesting whilst keeping a pivotal character like Kratos, making him fresh, making him new, while also using what he has done, making that mean something towards the future of the franchise with a character like Atreus. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's like
it's a 10 out of 10 game. Like, you would give this game a 10.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
It's one of them things, like, playing the game, and when I look back at it, I'm like, they must have sat in a room and perfectly mapped out everything, because there's never a moment in the narrative, or, like, not just the main narrative, but in the dialogue you get while you're traveling, while you're fast traveling, while you're exploring, in the narrative of, you know, things that are happening during side activities. Everything meshes so well together. It's like one big thing that it just works. Everything works with each other, and it's just like they must have planned that out so well, like, because there's so many different moving parts and it all works so well together. It's just incredible. It's so great.
So let's get into some specifics, I guess. Let's start breaking it down. Do you want to start with story? I guess we can start with story first of all, because it's story and characters. It's probably most important to you and I. The way it started, right? Like, I thought, let's break it down even smaller, I guess. This game nails everything, and when I say everything, I mean the soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks of any game I've ever played. Definitely. And from someone who's never played a God of War game ever, and I start this game, I know who Kratos is. He's the face of God of War. I know of him, I know what he means, and I know his personality in the sense of he's a powerful fucking dude. I know he's tough as shit, I know he's powerful, and I know he's been through some shit. So when you start the game and you're nailing everything from start to finish with tone, like I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. I don't really know who Kratos is fully, other than what he represents. I don't know who Atreus is. I don't know, has Kratos been around? Has he just showed up now that the mother's died? Like, I had no idea, but I was intrigued. All I knew is you were cutting down logs for fire to burn Kratos' wife, Atreus' mother, and then Atreus goes in to the room and lights the candles and does this blessing, and then the music shifts. As soon as you turn and Kratos is at the door, the music shifts to this darker, intense sort of just this Norse sort of epic music, and it represents, that music adds not just to the storyline, it adds to the characters. It's like you've got this personal little story that's really nice. It's like it's a son talking about his mother, blessing her as she's passed on. Like, that's really powerful. Like, what a tough kid to hold it together like he is. But then you turn around, you've got this music shift that changes, and it doesn't just tell you that Kratos 1 is distant at this point to Atreus, his son. There's a distance between their relationship. That's established just by their movement. There's no real dialogue said to it other than the way they talk to each other and the way they move around each other. Then you've got the music that adds the layer of backstory, of epicness, of importance to Kratos. You know what I mean? And those first 5 minutes establish everything with barely any dialogue in it.
Yeah, it's really fucking amazing. It really
It's something I've never seen. It's the best 5 minutes to a game ever.
Yeah, it was fucking great. Just the way they did that, like the shift in music between the two. Like, obviously you have the music with Atreus and then the music with Kratos, and it's just like to obviously just to link that, like the music does a lot for their relationship and for the story relationship through the story. Like, once you get to the end, like, you know, the music plays in certain ways where you can see that development. It's fucking incredible. The just like they do a lot with just camera movement, facial expression, and music to convey a lot of things, like be it emotion or foreshadowing even in a lot of ways. And it's just so fucking awesome because it's something you don't notice until you look at it, but then you realize how important it was. Because imagine that opening scene, that first 5 minutes, but it's a normal game with a normal cutscene with these camera angles and like, you know, the camera flicks back and forth and, you know, it just wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. Oh, no way. No way. The camera was everything. The camera's, I think, an underrated part of how important this game is, right? It's like a fly on the wall because it never cuts. It's always like you're there, not you're watching something that's happened in the past. It's like you're watching something that's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's something you can't really explain away, nor is it something that you can really put your finger on in the moment. It's just the feeling you have, and when you reflect upon it, you realize how impactful it is.
Yeah, definitely. You always feel like you're right there with the characters, and you feel like you're part of it. It's like I feel like I'm experiencing this too. It's really powerful the way they did that. It's great.
Now, I don't want to get into the gameplay. I do want to stick to the story for a while. But in terms of talking about the first hour or so of the game, the way this game establishes not just the story, not just the characters in Kratos and Atreus and their relationship, the whole game, there's so much to this game. There is so much customization. There's so many gameplay elements with combat. There's so many gameplay elements with the world. It's easy to get lost in what the game has to offer. This game eases you into every single gameplay feature so seamlessly, so integrally, that it just makes the whole experience so easy. And that's why when I talk about this game in being like really like awesome and everything, and it has all this stuff to it, but it's not just that it has all this stuff to it, it's that it makes it easy for you to enjoy all of the stuff that it has to offer. I don't get to the end of the game and I've got these different gameplay elements I've never really touched upon because they threw it all at me and I really just got used to using this bit and I felt uncomfortable trying all this new shit, so I just stuck to what I knew. No. It gives you everything piece by piece, one by one, so you know and understand how every gameplay feature works, and you know by the end of the game how to use and manipulate everything to your advantage. And the way especially that first hour works with the combat and how finding treasures works and how solving puzzles works and how moving around the world works, it establishes all of that in the first hour, and then it just builds upon it as the game goes on. So it's just something that first hour to me is more important than I think people really talk about with this game.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because you get the introduction to how the axe works, not just in combat, but also in puzzles, how it can freeze things and, you know, how you can knock things down with it, and that's important for puzzles and exploring the world. You get to figure out, you know, obviously there's the combat, you get the boss battle with the big old fucking troll thing.
Yeah.
And then you get the boat, and there's that, and you've got the, you know, and then while all of this gameplay is being introduced to you with the different enemy types and, you know, how the arrow shooting works with Atreus and all of this shit, it's also developing both of their characters as well as they move through the world and go on this hunt for this fucking deer or whatever it was. That's sort of like the beginning section.
And it's such a simple activity, right? You're just getting Atreus to hunted deer. But it really, and this is another thing this game does so well in terms of story, is it answers a question and raises three more. Because it answers a question, you're like, okay, well, what are we doing next, and what does that mean? Okay, it means this, but shit, like, but what does that mean overall for this? And what does that mean overall for this? And where's that going to go with that then? Okay, well, I want to know. So, like, it builds these characters while raising questions and what's going to happen next, but also what's their relationship been and how will that impact what does also happen next, because it doesn't stop building their past relationship on top of how the relationship is moving forward, because you never get a straight answer in how much Kratos was around with Atreus, right? Like, they keep talking about how he wasn't there much and how they're not close and how it was his mother that taught him how to do all this stuff and Kratos was doing stuff. So, I mean, was he around like was he gone for a couple of months and he'd come back for a couple of weeks and then he'd go again for a couple of months, or was he just not around for years, or was he around for most of the time but from a distance? Like, there's never a straight answer, nor is it that important. What's important is what that meant what that distance has meant for their relationship with each other, and how it's almost like they're connected not because they're father and son. They're connected because they both love Kratos' wife, Atreus' mother. They're connected through her, and this whole story is about their connection to her, and it's their connection to her that builds their connection to each other, not necessarily their relationship because they're father and son, but how much they love the mother.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that it links past to Kratos' past as well, in that, I mean, Kratos' father, Zeus, tried to kill him. And so, I mean, he's never had a great father figure, and he's had problems, like, in both ways. So, like, both being a father before and being a son before, you know, he had problems with his own father, and he doesn't know exactly how to be a father because of what happened with his previous family in Sparta. And so it's like, that then links to his relationship with Atreus. He doesn't fucking know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to be a father. He doesn't, like, you see multiple times through the game, and it's in the first hour, when you get out this first 2 hours, when you get out of this opening, and Atreus is looking over at the woods, and he says something, and Kratos goes to put his hand on his shoulder, and then he stops himself, and he just, like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, should I do that? And, like, but maybe he'll let his guard down, and he wants to make sure that he's trained and that he's safe and he can defend himself, and he doesn't want to, like, have that barrier there of, like, emotion to possibly, you know, fuck it up. But I think also it's also for him that he doesn't want to get too attached to this kid as well, because he knows what happened to his kid before. He doesn't want to mess up and have, like, you know, and have that same loss that he suffered before. And, you know, there's multiple times through the game where he defends Atreus, like, he goes through, like, some crazy shit to defend him. Like, there's one point where the bloody ogre or something goes to, like, grab Atreus, like, bite him, and Kratos just shoves his arm in the thing's mouth to stop it from getting to Atreus. And it's like, you see all that built upon as the game goes along, and it's like, clearly he does care for Atreus. It's just he has no idea how to show it, or how to be a father, and it's and that's one of Kratos' really cool arcs, is sort of figuring that out.
And that's the thing about this game, and I mean, we could talk for 5 hours about the integral specifics and how they managed to write and manipulate the whole storyline between these two characters, but we'd be here all day. That's the special thing about this, is that there's so many just undertone things that impact the overall, with everything, the foreshadowing, the build-up between their relationship, how Kratos develops as a father, how Atreus doesn't just build up as a son, but also builds up in himself as a young man, from being, you know, not being able to control his anger to being able to control his anger, then finding out he's a god, and then being an arrogant piece of shit thinking he's a god, and then learning to kind of find the balance in between that, and, you know, that his father had, but a bit quicker than he did, you know, through just losing. You know, that whole thing was very interesting, and I loved their dynamic. Now, just so we're not here all day, I guess, when it came to the end part, well, before we even get to the end, what were some of your favorite scenes throughout with these two specifically as characters through the story? Because I do want to touch on the other characters, like Mimir and bloody Freya. That's it, and
you got
Freya's son.
Balder, and then you got, like, Magni and the other guy as well. Yeah. And I forget their names, but they were
Brock and the dwarves
Brock and
stuff.
Sindri, yeah. Oh god, yeah, some really great fucking characters. There's a lot of moments in this game that are really special. A lot of fucking moments. I think some of the standout ones for me, obviously there's the crazy ones, like obviously you got the ending, and you've got, like, some battles, and you've got, like, the stuff with Athena, and the stuff with the Blades of Chaos, and, you know, whatever, and all that shit was fucking insane. But in terms of character moments, there's a few with Kratos and Atreus that I love. One of them is when they're in Tyr's vault, and
I was thinking the exact same scene.
And he sees the vase with, like, obviously him on, because it's from Sparta, and he smashes it on the ground, but Atreus still sees it. And then when they're going up the elevator to get out, and he has, like, the drink from Greece, and he tells him sort of about, you know, where he came from and everything, and just sort of that moment they share together of, like, just sort of I don't know, it's sort of like a combination of like everything they've been through, and they have this moment just to relax and just sort of reflect and just talk to each other. And it's sort of when Kratos starts to open up about his past as well, and I love seeing him do that, because it's like he's tried so hard to forget it, and that's another arc for him in this game as well, is learning to not forget his past but accept that it happened and move forward with it. And that shouldn't hold him back, because that's a thing that happened and it made him who he is, but it doesn't mean that he's a bad person. Like, he did a lot of bad things, and I mean, it's like another moment is that moment when he speaks to Atreus. It's when Baldur's gonna kill Freya, and Kratos grabs hold of him, and he says, he quotes Zeus from God of War 2, and he says, the cycle ends here, and like kills him. And that was so good that, like, I got fucking shivers. I was like, that's fucking awesome, because, like, even though he hated his father and he killed his father, he still learned from him as well. Like, the cycle does need to end. You can't have, fathers killing sons, or, sons killing mothers or whatever. Like, you can't have that. And it seems that being a god always brings that sort of burden that happens all the time. And he's sort of trying to teach that to Atreus, and he has that conversation where he's like, oh, I come from a land called Sparta, and, I killed a lot of people who were deserving and a lot of people who were not. And he explains it all to him, and he says, we need to be better. And it's just that's sort of like the message of the game, is be better and, break that cycle. And it's just such a great moment.
And it's all about parent relationships too, with Freya and Baldur and Kratos and Atreus, and even Kratos and Zeus is still a huge impact in this game. And just like you said, learning from mistakes and things like that, and being better, but also the right way to take responsibility, because Freya used, control and just never really got over the fact that she couldn't control everything that her son did, and that would only negatively impact her relationship with her child, whereas Kratos had to find the balance of not only controlling Atreus and what he did, but also letting him be free and learning the mistakes he's making on his own, which I feel he did nicely as well, because there was times I loved Atreus and hated Atreus, but I could tell the game wanted me to hate Atreus, right? Like, some of the main scenes was, like I said, Tyr's vault, but the main one was, like, I loved when, obviously, the standout scene for me is someone that, I didn't know that Kratos was getting those blades, but Athena shows up, and I haven't played the old God of Wars, but it still had a huge impact on me. Atreus has been injured, and he's sick, and he's dying, and he's got to go to Helheim to be able to save Atreus. But to do that, he's got to get his blades of chaos to be able to even work, and that whole scene with Athena. And he shows his wrists, and then he ties it around, and then he says, "But she said, you'll always be a monster." He said, "You're right, but I'm your monster no longer." Like, what a great scene! And then you start using those blades. I'm like, holy fuck! This is like, I'm like 60% through the game, and they've added this enormous gameplay feature to the game now.
I didn't think they'd add the blades. When it happened, I was fucking freaking out.
It was one of the most incredible moments ever, and how fun the blades are made it just as much impactful. Like, story-wise, it's impactful, right? But the fact that the blades are such an amazing, integral, and different part of the combat is what made it also mean more, because it's actually just as epic to play with as it was of a scene to introduce it, which is special. And then that led to Atreus finding out that he's a god, which again, in and of itself, is a great scene. And Atreus takes it really well, but that's actually a problem. Because in Tyr's temple, and you see this scene where Atreus is talking about, well, you're right. Well, you're right before, because these little people are just worrying gods about their little people problems. And you've got Mimir, the head, going, are we just going to leave that there? We're not going to address what he's saying? And I loved it. And that's the moment I realized this is the best game I've ever played. Because I was like in tears of like joy of playing the game in that moment. I remember messaging you. I said, this is the best game I've ever played. And I told you about that scene because you'd already played it. Yeah. And you're like, oh, yeah, I love that. That was the moment for me, because I'm like, this isn't a sad moment. This is barely a happy moment. This is actually a moment where I'm seeing Atreus become a bad dude, but it was done in such a way that I'm like, wow, I love every single character. I care about everything they're saying, and they're manipulating my emotions with every character so well, up and down, from start to finish for hours.
Yeah.
continuously challenging where I thought this game was going to go. And that scene to me was just a special one of like, what a funny scene. And Mimir was kind of the conscience of it all. And he himself is just a huge gameplay feature in the sense of how much he adds to the lore and explaining things. And it's just this random head that's a third member of your team in this journey that's a voice of reason and a voice of explanation, and that adds so much to the game as well, that again is just an addition you don't know about until you play the game itself.
Yeah, and I think that, I love that when Atreus finds out he's a god and he starts to get all cocky and he kills that one god after Kratos told him not to, where he says like he's defeated, we don't need to kill him, and Atreus does it anyway. It's like Kratos saw his younger self in Atreus, and he's like mad at him, and he's like, there are consequences to killing a god. And obviously he hasn't told, Atreus about his past, but it's like Kratos, in his sort of, wanting revenge on Ares for what happened in the original God of War, he kills Ares, but without thinking about the consequences. And in doing so, it spirals him into this, this war against all the gods of Mount Olympus, where he has to kill all of them. And he obviously doesn't want the same to happen again. And he's like, we can't go around just killing gods. It's like, only if it's, super necessary. And that time it just wasn't. And it's like, I really like that moment where Kratos, there's such development with Kratos. He doesn't want to be the same. He understands his faults. And I think that's why he tries to hide it as well. Because he's like, he doesn't want to be that guy. He knows what he did was wrong. The amount of innocent people he killed, and the fact that he, it didn't have to turn out that way, but that's what happened, and he doesn't want it to happen again, but he doesn't seem to want to confront it either until the very end.
And that's the beautiful part about Atreus to this whole game, is that without Atreus, Kratos is kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like, Kratos is developed so well because of Atreus, and you don't get to see that without Atreus there, and seeing a younger self. No. And the fact that this game is all about spreading the mother's ashes on the top of a mountain, that's the whole story. And this is the game we get out of that story. Insane, man. Insane.
That's fucking crazy.
I just can't speak more highly of it, and how Atreus again comes full circle from becoming more of a man and figuring out and controlling himself, to then realizing he's a god, becoming an arrogant piece of shit, coming back and learning from those mistakes all in one game. He's such a developed and fleshed out kid, and it just made Kratos become a better man and a better god because of how he parented Atreus.
Yeah.
Atreus' development is Kratos' development, It's a special thing, and it doesn't work like, it's not, this is the special thing about it, like, that doesn't just work with every game. You can't just do that with any game. It works because of how they did it in this game that made it special.
Yeah, and I love the way they do it. So that this new God of War, like, I think it's really cool that, obviously what happened in the past God of War games, caught yourself up to speed, but I think it's interesting that we both enjoyed it just as much, but you hadn't played the games, and I had played the previous games, and I think it works in both ways. You can play this game, I think you need to know at least who Kratos is. Like, I think that needs to be known. Like, he's a god. He killed all the gods in Greece. I think as long as you know
But they made it impact. Like, they didn't explain it in this game, but at the same time, they made it pretty obvious as to what he's done. But you didn't even need to know. There's almost a special part, because even if you hadn't, for me, I felt like more of Atreus, because Atreus didn't know. And, I knew what he did because I watched a quick recap of it. Yeah, sure, but I didn't know the details. I knew, like, he told me a 5-minute tale about it. Like, I didn't really know the specifics. I didn't play it. Like, you've played it. You knew the details. You knew lines people have said. I couldn't read that. I couldn't know Zeus said that in God of War 2. But that's almost what made it just as special in a different way, because I'm like, they made his backstory important without it being important.
They made it feel like it was important to this game, but it wasn't integral to know it. It was like his backstory was an important plot point, but you don't have to know it. Like, it's
Yeah.
just
It's
important
just like
that,
some
yeah,
shit happened that's serious. He
yeah,
learned from mistakes. He's been through shit. Like they made you realize that. They made you feel like he's been through a lot of shit.
yeah.
And I know what a badass he is, so I already knew stuff like that. Like I knew who Kratos was.
He's done
I'm like,
some
wow, this
mad
dude's
shit.
crazy.
Like,
And
he
I'm,
has
I'm
done
like,
some mad
wow,
shit.
this dude's come a long way from what I'd seen from the small amount of God of War stuff. I'm like, what a character, what a journey he was on from the start of this game to the end of this game. But he's a character that can't change, but at the same time he's changed.
Mm,
Like he's still the exact same Kratos when Atreus is not the same Atreus,
mm.
but at the same time Kratos has developed a lot in a different. Like that's a great, impossibly brilliant thing about God of War on PlayStation 4 is they do things so well without doing them.
Mm.
If that makes sense. That's the thing. It doesn't even make sense when I say it.
Yeah,
They
no, I get what you mean.
they do things so well without saying them is the right way to say it. You know what I mean? And that's the amazing part about it. It doesn't just work because let's just do a father and son storyline and blah, 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 blah. Let's just throw it out there and it'll make sense because people will be like, well, I have a father or I have a son, you know? No. It works because they make it work by doing things rather than saying things or saying things without doing things. They knew when to say things. They knew when not to say things. They knew when to do things. They knew when not to do things.
Yeah,
They just knew what to do every step of this whole game, every beat, every moment, every scene, every line, every minute. It's just a near perfect game.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a sort of father and son storyline. It's like a Kratos and his son storyline. It's a very specific storyline. It works so well because it's Kratos, and I think that's what's so fucking good about this game. Like a lot of games, they're like, oh, we want to be like open to new players, but we also want to, you know, do stuff for returning fans. So like we'll try and find a balance. This game is the perfect balance. It's in every way a sequel to God of War 3, but in a way that you don't have to have played any of the old games as well. It's so fucking good in that way. I just don't know how they've done it. Like, because
now
amazing.
I'd like to say this. I'll ask you a question. Don't Google it. I just like to ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you heard about how much it sold?
I've heard it's like the fastest selling PlayStation 4 game, but I haven't heard exact amounts.
For companies like EA saying people don't care about single player experiences anymore, for companies like Ubisoft that say it's all got to be fresh and you can't use characters again, blah, 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 all this bullshit, for companies that use multiplayer as their primary source of gaming and think that they can't make money from things, that the companies that use microtransaction bullshit to make money and make quality games and just make fans feel like shit, they have no fucking clue what they're talking about. They want us to think that because they want to manipulate the market in the future. They want to brainwash the people that pay the money. They want to brainwash the marketplace to do what they want us to do, which is to spend money on bullshit and say thank you, we love it, when it's shit. What God of War has done is given us a single-player experience that you pay for and you get what you pay for. It gives exactly what you want and more. It doesn't ask you for more money. It doesn't ask you for more bullshit. It gives you everything within itself as a game. And it's a single-player experience. And guess what? It's the fastest-selling PlayStation 4 exclusive of all time. Uncharted 4 sold 2.9 million units in the first week. Horizon Zero Dawn sold 2.7 million units in 2 weeks. God of War sold 3.1 million units in 3 days.
Holy shit. That's insane.
God of War is proof that good quality games that leave the audience satisfied, happy, and excited is going to not only sell you games now, but it's going to sell you games later.
100%.
And it's going to sell you consoles later because it's an exclusive.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the thing, like it's like EA and Ubisoft, they don't want to admit it, but investment in these characters work. Like Kratos is a character from 2005. Like, and to have a game with this character that's so old and has so many, you know, other games relating to him, to sell that fucking well, it's a clear message that people love, you know, story-driven investment in characters and stuff. Like, but, oh god, yeah.
It also shows reviews matter as well.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. Look all this fucking reviews. It's incredible.
Yeah, although if you don't think that didn't impact the game sales as well, you're kidding yourself. You know what I mean? Like what God of War did, how they gave games super early to reviewers, and then you set this date, release your reviews now. You know, and then it was such huge, sea of enthusiasm and praise and acclaim. It led to the release a couple of days later. The audience going, "Fuck, I better play this,"
Yeah.
They just
knew what
nailed
they were
it.
doing.
I don't know. This is why I'm like, as much as I'm excited to see what happens next, as much as I'm excited for a sequel, at the same time, I'm okay if I never played another God of War game again because, and I mean this in the sense of, I just can't imagine in a world like this, you can have a game not only be a game within itself, a 10 out of 10 perfect, near perfect game, but the way they marketed it, the way they released it so perfectly, you can never do that again. You can't do that again.
I mean,
lightning doesn't strike twice like that. I've never seen a company do it before to that level. I'm sure they'll sell well, if not better, with a sequel, but will they nail everything as well with a sequel? Will they nail the way they release it and market it? I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know. I just don't believe it. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, it must be tough. I mean, that's why I think they need to leave it a while, because obviously, it's got to be surely like.
I want a sequel tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to play more, but I mean, I don't know, maybe like 5 years or something. Like, I mean, how long's it been since God of War 3? Like 8 years or something?
Yeah. It wasn't 2013 or 12 or something that.
Oh, I think God of War 3 was it not 2010?
I have no idea.
Yeah, God of War 3 was 2010. I mean, obviously you have the spin-off games, but I mean, they don't really count.
God of War Ascension. That was like 2000.
They're all sort of prequels and stuff, aren't they? Like, and stuff. It's like, not that they're bad games. I'm not saying they're bad games. Like, people do really like them, and obviously they add to the story. I'll probably play them at some point. But in terms of like this is their sequel to God of War 3. It's been 8 years, so they've been
working up for 5 solid years.
Yeah, so I'd say maybe 5 years. Give them 5 years. Like, give them all the fucking time they need to make the next game, because I mean.
Yeah.
The story's only going to go so many fucking places, and it's just, there's so much they can do with it.
Let's talk about the ending then. Let's talk about it, because you've got great characters. Mimir, amazing addition to the team. Freya, great character, the way they developed her, the way they foreshadowed the boulder arrow thing, incredible. They did so much amazing shit with foreshadowing in this game. I'd never seen a game foreshadow like this. It was like a movie. The way they played with motifs and icons throughout it, and then they reconnected with it later. They treated the player like they're intelligent, like they could put things together themselves, which I appreciate. Not enough games do that. It was fantastic. And it just added to the ending and made it so much more, because I'm like, well, how the fuck do you beat him? Like, how the fuck do you beat Boulder? He's indestructible. And then it turned out that these green arrows, and then you flash back in your head. And I'm like, oh, shit, that's incredible. Yeah. That's amazing stuff. And Freya did great, and I want to see what happens with her next. They finished off the storyline. They started from the start with Boulder, and they completed Atreus and Kratos' arc and everything, and then Mimir, this great addition. People like Brock, and the dwarves and stuff, they were great additions. Then we get to the ending. We finally get to Jotunheim, this journey that's taken a million twists and turns that couldn't have been simpler as an idea, but couldn't have been more difficult to fucking achieve, to spread ashes at the top of the mountain. We're here in Jotunheim, and we get the story of Kratos and Atreus already told on wall paintings, like it was a prophecy. What were you thinking when you were seeing all that shit?
I mean, I'm still a little bit confused on it now. As much as I get it, but like it was like I was like, wait, why is this here? Like, who? Like, was it like they knew this would happen, or is it because of time travel and time moving differently in realms? And that's why, right? Like the time in realms moves differently. Is that not?
Yes.
That is why, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, and it was like, I mean, I think it is a bit of both, because I think Atreus has he has like premonitions as well, with things that he foreshadows in the game, just like passing things that he says in the game, and obviously that secret ending, which I suppose we'll get onto later on, but that's sort of like Atreus has those, so maybe his mother did too, but it's also a bit of sort of time travel-y, you know, time not in sync properly because of realms or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, it's I was like, oh shit, so these are all like, this is our whole journey from start to finish. Like, what the fuck is going on? I was confused, but I think I get it now.
Well, the most interesting part, as I said right at the top of this podcast, is we found out that not only is their sort of story been predestined, or retold from the future, but we found out the name of Atreus originally, at least in the eyes of his mother and to her people in Jotunheim and the giants, is Loki, the god of mischief.
Oh yeah, that was a moment. I was like, oh shit. I mean, it makes sense. Like, it all made sense to me. I was like, that makes sense, because obviously his mother's called Faye, but it's like, it's Laufey, like the giant Loki's mother.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the world serpent, who's Loki's son.
Yeah. Who said I recognized that boy?
Him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it all just came together, and there's a moment as well where when Loki finds out he's a god, or when Atreus finds out he's God, he says, "Oh, can I turn into a wolf?" And one of Loki's sons is a wolf. And it's like there's little bits of foreshadowing here and there, and it's really fucking cool. When you find it out, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And it was such a great moment. I watched a video of the creative director, who's also like the full director on the game, and he's also a writer on it, who said about when they came up with that moment. He said it wasn't him that came up with it. It was someone pitched it to him. They came in, they were like, "Oh, we're thinking about this ending, and like we think it'd be cool if Atreus at the end was like, oh, they were saying my name wrong, and on the wall paintings they called me like Loki." And he was like, "We've got to put that in the game. Like that's perfect. That was such a great moment." And that's when they did it. So, it was just so great, just revealing that, and it opens up so many doors for what they can do in the future.
There's even a foreshadow moment that I loved with Balder. When Balder was killing Kratos at the top of the mountain, he goes, "This will be my new brother now."
Oh, yeah.
You said that about Atreus, and I was like, that's funny because, Balder and Thor are sons of Odin, and Loki is the adopted son of Odin.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought back to that straight away. I'm like, that's funny because, well, technically they are brothers in mythology.
That was cool. Yeah.
There's a lot of good moments, but I did feel the ending was really anticlimactic. I just kind of expected this big epic ending, and like I thought, sure, Balder's the right person to have the ending with, right? When you think about it with that boss battle. Once I finished the boss battle, I'm like, that was like the pre-boss battle. That's not the end. And then you get to the end, and I expected Freya or something. I expected there to be one more big epic moment, and there wasn't. It just kind of ended. It was really a slow sort of ending, which I wasn't mad at or anything, but I was just kind of like, okay, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
I didn't. I mean, I guess I went into it. I mean, I expected we'd get way more with the sequel in terms of who we would fight. So I was like, I was convinced, like midway through the game, I was like, okay, we're only going to be fighting Balder in this game. It's like the way you only fought Ares in God of War 1. It's a very personal story, and then the second game, with God of War 2, like you're fighting the whole pantheon of gods. So it's like, I assume they'll give a reason for that in God of War 2 or whatever they call the next one, and we'll see where that goes. But I mean, that final boss battle with Balder was fucking awesome. Really loved that moment with Freya when you kill Balder, and she's like saying how she'll like rain down everything on you and everything, and it's like, okay, well, I'd like to see how that turns out, because that sounds interesting. And all that stuff, and he has with Atreus, and then obviously they go to the top of the mountain and shit. But yeah, and as well with that mountain stuff, after you find out Atreus is Loki and all of that stuff, when you come out and Atreus asks, well, why did you name me Atreus? And he tells the story of the Spartan like officer guy that was like always sort of optimistic and everything in battle, and that was a really nice story, and it fits Atreus' character, and it also is like sort of some of Kratos' backstory as well, which is nice.
Yeah, I loved all that too. Other thing, and we'll kind of get to this with the sequel talk, because I want to kind of backtrack and talk about gameplay and the world a bit more before we talk about like the future predictions. But in the wall paintings, we see Atreus killing Kratos.
Yes.
Or taking the life force of Kratos. It's not specific.
Well,
you could interpret it in different ways, but I interpret it as this is going to be one of the storylines where Atreus is going to have to kill Kratos in some way, shape.
I'm not sure where they're going to go with that, because I mean, what it looked like to me was, I mean, Kratos is dying and Loki or Atreus is there, and you've got the World Serpent like there that's like coming out, and it's like, it's like Kratos has been like foreshadowed or like, you know, prophesized to die many times, and he's always changed fate. And I think there's a lot of moments in this game where they do change a lot of things. And I mean, you know, they've foreshadowed with things like Ragnarok. It's like, what's going to happen with that? I think it's very possible that Kratos could come out of it.
God, everything causes Ragnarok in this fucking mythology, I swear to God. Every time they talk about any story and any character ever, and that's when Ragnarok will happen.
Yeah, it's like, and then it snowed, and then it Ragnaroked. It was great. It's like, don't step there, it'll cause Ragnarok. Be careful. No one stands on that square.
That's a meme. That is a meme in the making right there. It's like, don't do that. Ragnarok will happen.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm surprised Ragnarok hasn't happened already. What is going on?
Yeah, what is happening? We did talk about things, so therefore Ragnarok.
Yeah, it's Jesus Christ. Yeah, we all exist, so Ragnarok should be happening now. What's going on, guys?
I almost forgot there were even people in this, because a big part about this game is like I felt so empty in a lot of ways. Like, sure, there's a lot of dead bodies and old buildings and stuff. I'm like, but where the fuck are the people? I'm in Midgard. This is a mortal realm. Where the fuck are the people? I forgot that there was even a scene where there were people that turned into dead people, like ice people, in the game. Because Atreus is talking about, what if we run into humans? What if we run into other humans and men?
Oh, yeah, the Reavers.
Like, I'll do that. And then all of a sudden you've got these random dudes that show up. And I'm like, yeah, they're the only real mortal humans that showed up in the whole game.
Yeah, it's because they turn into those other people, don't they? And then they stay as those other people. I think the way I thought of it was the place we are in Midgard is so close to the sort of like the Bifrost and the, like, you know, where all of this stuff is and the battles and stuff, that I feel like the further you moved out, you'd find more people living, because it's like with the original God of War games, there were a lot of civilians. You were always sort of in, like, in the first game anyway, you were in Sparta, and you had all the civilians, and they were all sort of about, and you'd be, like, in the midst of battle, and you'd see these battles with these, like, armies and stuff. And obviously, that was just, like, normal. But then, in, like, God of War 2 and 3, you're up in, like, Mount Olympus, and you're with the gods, and there's not a lot of people. So I feel like it works in the same way. Like, the area you are in Midgard is, because it's so close to the Bifrost, there's going to be less people there. I feel like that's why that was happening.
Maybe. That's a headcanon thing you're doing there,
because
my friend.
Midgard is the whole planet. Like, Midgard is just Earth. So, I mean, obviously, you've not just got, like, you know, fucking, I don't know where they are, fucking Norway, or wherever, in fucking Scandinavia. So,
yeah. I
mean, yeah, I suppose there'd be more people. There'd be more people outside of it, but I never really thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought about that mostly at the end. That's a small criticism of it. It just felt a bit empty sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else, actually? Because there was a battle or something, was there not? Because that's where you've got all the dead people and, like, their crashed ships and stuff. So it must have been like a battlefield that happened there.
Yeah, but that was a while ago, though, from what I remember.
True. I feel like just no one goes there because it's so fucking dangerous.
Yeah, true. But also, like, there was lots going on with the realm tears, and that's why dead were coming through, things like that, you know?
Yeah, true.
So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I got that, but I was like, there could have been a couple more people, right? But yeah, again, it didn't make that much of a difference because, you know, it wasn't really to do with the story, and it was every character was very specific to the story, because it just wouldn't make sense for you to run into anybody, in the sense of every person you run into has an impact on your characters, because you would be like, shit, what are you doing? Oh, how can we help? Or how can you help us, sort of thing. So you can't just have a random civilian pop up, because that's every character you ran into caused an effect, right?
Yeah. And because
which is another special part of the game.
Yeah, because the area is so dangerous as well. It's like, why there's not going to be random civilians, so everyone's got to be important as well. That's why you got, like, Brock and Sindri and Freya and everyone, because it's like these people can survive out here. Whereas you've got, like, you're not gonna have, like, you know, bloody Bob and Jack or whatever just, like, sitting on a bench like, oh, it's a fucking lovely day, innit? With, like, Draugr everywhere. So I guess it makes sense. I just assume there's no, like, normal civilians there. They probably live on the outskirts. Plus, it's, like, fucking Scandinavia in, like, it's a long time ago, isn't it? Like, I guess it'd be around the same time as, like, ancient Greece, so...
Yeah.
There's not many people there, I don't think.
Yeah, true. Good point. And I mean, you did see like human villages that were just wrecked and destroyed as well, and just dead bodies and stuff. In terms of gameplay, I tell you what, the combat in this game is so fucking fun. I can't even deal.
Yeah, it really
Like,
is.
even just me doing the post, trying to platinum the game and doing all the post game and Niflheim stuff, like, and you're grinding the mist echoes in this fucking maze, and it should be boring, but the combat's so fun, it just doesn't get old. There's so much variation to it. Once you master it, I feel like such a badass switching between weapons, from the axe to the blades of chaos to just unarmed. And using all your abilities, your talisman, your special moves, summoning, Atreus is helping you, everything, and just how it impacts the many different types of enemies. It's just it's never dull, ever, in this game. There's never a minute of dullness in any of the story aspects, because not only is the story super interesting with dialogue continuously, the combat's fun, the gameplay's fun, it's just fucking incredible. And it keeps adding more and more abilities to you, whether they throw the blades of chaos at you. They're like, Atreus can shoot these lightning arrows that can activate this. Now you can explode this. You can go back to this and get this chest now. You know, there's always adding these new elements to it. It's a new gameplay feature to the world.
Yeah. I agree. It was really cool. It was really balanced. It was, you know, there was way more, like, you think, like, there was a lot of points where I'm like, okay, I think I get the game now. And they'd add more things into the game. And I'm like, oh, shit, I didn't realize we'd be getting more things that, you know, you had to learn. It was like, because there was a point where I was like, I'd leveled up the axe pretty much all the way, and I was like, okay, we've got to be getting close to the game. And then they introduced the blades of chaos, and I was like, okay, yeah, we're nowhere near done, are we? Because this is, you know, I've got a whole nother skill tree now to sort out and everything. So yeah, I really love the way they did all that.
Incredible. I remember when I messaged you, I'm like, I'm surely like 75% of the way, and you're like, you're not even halfway, Tom. I'm like, holy shit. And it's not because it's like the longest game ever. It's just because like it's so intense. I couldn't play God of War for more than 3 hours at a time. I had to put it down. It was too intense. It was too much. Like I was like, I need a break. I need to relax. I need to go like hug my puppy or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I had to take a break. It's just so intense, man.
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
So, I mean, we could sit here and break down every aspect of everything forever, but I do want to touch on, but we can't. Like, we've talked about the things, our main things that come to mind. I'm sure there's things we'll talk about another time. But I want to talk about post-game and what's coming next, like future predictions, I guess, because the post-game...
Go over the post-credit scene and...
Yes, let's do that.
Stuff? All right.
So, Thor... just throw it in. The Thor shows up, but yeah, just that you go back to the house. You've gone through this epic journey. I don't want to speak too loud because I can hear Harlan just as I'm outside walking around the house, and he's just started playing God of War. I don't want to spoil it for him. I can hear him going to the bathroom, and I'm like, oh shit, do I want to talk to you lad? You know, you show up at the house after everything, you sleep, and then it goes years later. But they obviously don't change the character models, and I imagine they'll address this whole scene later in the next game, and they'll be, you know, grown up a bit more, especially obviously Atreus. And out the front door is Thor, son of Odin, who's, I mean, you've killed 2 of his sons and his brother in this game, so he's obviously pissed.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fucking cool. I was like, when I saw the dude outside the front of the house, obviously you don't know it's Thor at first. Like, you see all the lightning, I'm like, is this Thor? Is Thor gonna show up? And then you see the guy, and I'm like, oh god, is it? And then he pulls the cape back, and you see me on there, and it's like, oh shit, that's fucking awesome. And it was like, okay, so where are they going with this though? Because this was years later. Are you telling me Thor took years to decide he wanted to kill Kratos and Atreus? Like, what's going on there?
I feel like that the scene represents more of what the game's about next, and it's not that years later he just decides he wants to do it. I feel like years later something happens that really triggers. Sure, he's killed 2 of his sons, but I feel like there's more to it, in the sense of there's a reason he's doing it now years later, and I feel like it's to do with Freya. Like, I feel like Odin will be someone you deal with in the 3rd game of this Norse saga. Like, I feel like it'll be like a trilogy of this Norse era. It's not just going to be one more game, that'll be it. I feel like the main enemies we'll be dealing with in the next game are going to be Thor and Freya. Freya, to me, is someone who's going to last probably until the ending of it, and she'll be the final person we sort of battle. she'll be the underlining character of it all. Like, she'll become an ally again for a short time and an enemy again, back and forth, here and there. But Thor will be the main bad guy consistently, and then Odin will be the main bad guy consistently in the third. But there'll be underlying aspects and undertones of Freya here and there, and she'll be a person we'll have to battle. I feel like Atreus is going to have his ups and downs too. The older he gets, the more power he gets, the more he understands his powers as a god. I feel like he's going to have a role to play, because I feel like, to me, Kratos at some point story has to end. And there has to be a passing of the torch. I thought it should have been this game, but the more, I kind of reflect on it, I'm like, no, I would love to see these two again, and maybe even a third time. And then once the Norse era sort of ends, really end Kratos and move on with Atreus and / Loki as the next main guy. Like, why not?
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. But obviously they know this, and everyone knows this. They'd have to do it in the best way possible.
Yeah. Because do you think it would feel like a waste if, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
They finish with the Norse era. They go to wherever they go next, whether it's like Egyptian sort of gods or wherever they go. It doesn't matter. But the end of this era is Kratos wins. Like, Atreus goes bad, you kill your son, and Kratos is alone again, and next era. And that's just Kratos by himself. You wouldn't feel like you've just wasted, like, they've literally just started this whole era and then killed it all and then moved on just for the sake of it.
Because it's like, you can't just do God of War, the original trilogy, again. You can't just go, oh, Kratos comes here, he kills a god, bad things happen, he kills all the gods. His son, like, goes mad with power, and then he has to kill his son, and then he moves to somewhere else, and now he's all alone again. It's like the same story. They just set up the same story again. It's like, I don't, like, as much as I'd love to see Kratos go to all these different places, I think if you're going to tell the best story, now you've set up these characters, there has to be that passing of the torch, and Atreus has to become the god of war in a way. Because God of War means more than just, the god of war now, in the God of War lore anyway. So, like, he's not just, like, the way Ares was watching over war. It's like, Kratos has kind of given it a new meaning. It means something else, and he could pass that on to Atreus.
It's also the story itself, right? Like, he's not really even the god of war in this. It's not like he even is. Yeah, he's not the god of war in this game. He's just Kratos, but he was the god of war, and this is his story. It's not to do with being the god of war. It's what happens.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, like, I think they're definitely going to develop Atreus's god powers in the future, because there's a moment in God of War, I think, is it before? Yeah, it's before Atreus knows he's a god, when he like almost activates Spartan Rage, but he passes out because he's like, he doesn't know how to control it, and he doesn't know he's a god. Because it's like that coughing that he keeps doing is like him not understanding everything, and like whenever he gets angry, and then he lets it go, and he has that like burst of like red stuff that Kratos does when he goes into Spartan Rage, but Atreus just collapses. So it'd be really cool to see Atreus fully embrace that and actually like go like sort of like full Kratos even, and sort of do the same shit Kratos would do, and see like his power fully realized, because he's got Kratos' full god powers as well as also being a giant as well. So that'd be interesting to see him explore.
There's so much they can do. Like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the one writing it. I wouldn't know what to.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it one of those things? Like, Assassin's Creed, like, just give it to us. We'll fucking figure it out. But with this, is like, okay, yeah, I don't want to deal with this. You need actual smart people to do this, not idiots. Because for Assassin's Creed, idiots can do better. So that's the difference there.
Yeah, definitely.
What else is there to talk about? I guess we could just break down everything, but I don't really want to. I wanted to talk to you about like the main stuff of the story that's out and things like that. Like, I'm looking forward to Thor next. I'm looking forward to seeing what Freya becomes now that she's lost her son and hates Kratos and Atreus. I think Mimir, we didn't really talk much about Mimir, but he was such an amazing part of this game, and I'd want him to be a part of this journey the whole time. Those three together, it's like an awesome little.
It was so good. I didn't even realize, like, it was when Mimir shows up, you're like, oh, so now this guy, we're just going to transport him somewhere, but it's like, no, he just became a main character. I was like, I fucking love it. He's such a great character.
Without him, that was the thing. This whole gameplay, the way it built and gave you more gameplay features, more story features, more story features, it just expanded more than I ever thought it would times 10 from where it was at the start. Like when you're in the first couple of hours of the game, it feels like you're playing an Uncharted or Last of Us, a bit of a linear experience with some collectibles throughout. And then it builds up and they're like, oh no, you can move around a bit. Oh no, there's different realms as well. Oh, you can move around huge amounts, plus side activities and all this extra stuff and all these different realms. Like what I thought it expanded upon times 10 is what it really was. And it just does that in the best way possible with characters also. Like, I start to think to myself, right now that I'm at the end game, what was it even like without my Blades of Chaos? What was this game even like without Mimir? How could I play this game without Mimir, you know?
Yeah.
It adds everything. It means so much that you're like, fuck, I can't even remember. I don't even want to remember playing without my Blades, playing without Mimir, playing without my ability to do this or that or the other.
It's almost like a different game at the end, the way it progresses from start to finish. It's almost like a completely different experience because you open up so many more narrative doors. You understand the world way better. You understand where you are. Like, you understand how everything works. You get a lot more equipment, way more characters, and the relationships change, and, you know, your outlook on the way the world is and everything. It's just completely different at the end to how it is at the beginning. And it's not like it's sudden. It's a progression across the narrative of the game. And it's just so great.
Yeah, it's... Oh, fuck. I can't wait to see what happens next. Give me the sequel tomorrow, please. I can't deal with this.
I can't fucking wait.
And the way, like, it may upset some people, because at first I thought, oh shit, we're going to all 9 realms because all 9 realms are on the board, but no, it's just all 9 realms are on the board because all 9 realms exist, but you can only go to so many in the game. And there was Helheim and Alfheim throughout the story, plus Jotunheim at the end. With Midgard being the main place, and then post-game realms being Niflheim and Mudelheim and whatever it's called.
Yeah. As
post-game worlds, plus the Valkyrie stuff. Like, it's not the greatest post-game content in the world, but they were fun. Like, I loved farming, like, the Mist Echoes and going through all that to upgrade my stuff. The arena challenges were tough and fun. The Valkyries were awesome, different types of boss battles.
Yeah.
You know, it's been fun. Like, I've enjoyed it, but like you said, it's like a different game. I'm like, oh, wait, this was the game that I was playing that felt like a Uncharted Last of Us game at the start? What a world we live in.
Yeah, it's amazing.
With a game like this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm mad we couldn't go to, like, Asgard and wherever. And it's like, they're obviously saving that for sequels. Like, they need somewhere new for us to explore. And I'm excited to see that in the future because, obviously, Asgard, it was like, Asgard's Svartalfheim and Vanaheim were locked. And that'll be interesting to see in the future, to see what they look like. Like, especially Asgard. That'll be incredibly interesting to see exactly how that's looking, so... I mean, those will be great places for the future. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, how do you do a trilogy? Well, are they gonna, like, what? How are they gonna expand these areas? And how are they gonna? Are you just gonna revisit them, but they look different, or like, what are we like? That's
well, if years go by with Midgard plus the World Serpent effect on the world, I feel like Midgard you can change up quite a bit, extend it a bit, and then you've got realms we've never visited. That could be plenty, and as well within other realms, I'm sure there'll be big places you can go to in these realms will be only explored. Because the other realms other than Midgard, I think, were small sections of it. I'm sure they can expand those heaps amount that we've already visited, plus ones we haven't.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do with that. That'll be good. I look forward to it.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm sure there is, but also...
Yeah, nothing I can think off the top of my head. DLC, I've heard a lot of talk about what people think, like people really want an expansion. What do you think?
I don't think there's going to be DLC or an expansion.
No, I don't think there will either, and I don't really want it either.
Neither do I. I want all the story to fit into a sequel, I don't want them to waste storylines on DLCs,
I don't think there's any need for it, and I don't think they want to do it either, to be honest. And that's fine. Like, with this game breaking all those sort of conventions of modern video games, it'd only make sense for them not to do DLC, because they haven't been doing microtransactions, they haven't been doing all this online stuff, and it makes sense for them not to do any expansions either, and just, this is the game. And I think that's great to see that in 2018, just a game like that with no stupid gimmicks and all of the shit that normally weighs down games in the industry like today. So I think that's good.
Fuck, yeah. You're totally right. Oh, beautiful. This is definitely one of the best games I've ever played. And if someone's somehow listened to this whole podcast and not played it, get your fucking life together.
We've ruined the whole fucking thing now. So
yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, well, you know what? Figure it out. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, there you go. That is God of War, the spoiler cast. Fuck, I'm yawning. Okay.
You're yawning too. Yeah, I'm tired too.
Jesus. But there you go. That's the God of War spoiler cast. If you did enjoy, and you're listening on the YouTube one, then go ahead and drop a like. Check out links in the description. If you enjoyed so much that you're like, I could really do with a bit more of this, we have a bunch of exclusive content over at patreon.com/asalways. It'll be the top link in the description. Obviously, or patreon.com/asalways if you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud. And you can pledge just $1 to get a ton of exclusive content and support us over there. And some of you sweet vintage lads we have here supporting us are King Richard III, Bullsack47, Team Manuel Travis, Billy the Team Tournament Captain Robertson, Josh DeVilliers, Damien, Mario53A, Lumistrad, Josh Jordan, Ben or Modorox, The Humble Worm, Elstico91, Emil Catborg, Austin, S. Jaws, Good Day It's Laser, Prove V Mover, Shaded Rav, Julie, Adam Sundling, HBars12, Saggy Tits, Jace the Last Medici, Jonas Stewart, James and Ladd, Yazin, Joe the Sexy Boy Smith, Brian Ford, Connor DeRose, Ginger Nut Jared, George Longhead Fox, Joshua Mora, Gene, Marcus Blackburn, Nimbus, Seth, Oscar, Ravjai, Son of a Bitch, OG Doggo, Tyler Tranter, Brendan or BQ Overlord, and Pink Flame 313. Thank you all very much for your continued support, and yeah, that's that. I think we're all done. We good? Is that it?
We good? Yeah, that's it.
All right.
God of War, play it. It's one of the best games of all time.
Yep. All right. See you guys next time, and goodbye.
Bye.